I want to give a visual representation of just how good the #1 player right now, Shin Jin-seo, is. Here I've compiled the top 20 players and their ratings according to the quite accurate WHR algorithm on goratings.org. And you can see Lian Zhao, very famous player, Zhe Hao, I've featured him in plenty of game reviews. These are extremely top players. I have their bar graphs adjusted here so that they have the smallest bar, and we can see the rate of progression between top 20 and top 15. We see Miu Ting, Shin Minjun, extremely strong players here. Just because your bar graph is small on this thing doesn't mean you're a bad player. It means you're incredibly good. You can see a lot of Chinese names you may not have heard before. There are lots and lots of very, very good Chinese players who don't show up that often in international tournaments because they have to make it through the Chinese qualifiers. Byung-Seung Gil, very famous player. And here we're getting to the really big dogs. The top 5, just outside of it is Ke Jie, then there's Park Jung-won. We have Wang Jinghao, an up-and-coming prodigy. I'm sure to feature him in some videos. Ding Hao, top 3. And Gu Zhihao, as the man who beat Shin Jin-seo in a world championship this year. He is number 2 now. And you can see between the top 20, there's about 100 points of difference here. Gu Zhihao nearing 3,700. So if Shin Jin-seo is only as good at Go as Magnus Carlsen is at chess, then you'd expect him to be at like 3,750, maybe 3,770 or so. But we haven't seen the top of his graph. It's just not here yet. So I have to go up here a little bit. 3,700, but this is where like 3,750 or wait, 3,800. But we haven't seen the top of the graph. If Shin Jin-seo is just as good as Magnus Carlsen is at chess, then we would already see, but we haven't seen it. So surely it's just like 3,850, right? So I can keep going. But we still haven't seen the top of the graph. 3,850 should have been here, but only there. More than 2/3 of the way to 3,900. His ELO, according to the WHR algorithm, is 3,871. The difference between the top 20 was less than 100. Is incredible. The difference between him and second place is about double the difference between second and 20th. That's how good Shin Jin-seo is. Today, unfortunately, Shin Jin-seo is not the protagonist, but the antagonist. Because to have the greatest Go tournament run possible, you can't be the best player, you have to beat the best player. Zhu Haohong, already having defeated the number 2 ranked at the time, Park Jung-won, was unlucky enough to draw Shin Jin-seo in the semifinals. That's what we thought. But of course we know that this is the greatest tournament run possible, so he must have won against the near invincible Shin Jin-seo. It wasn't like Shin Jin-seo was on a rough patch. He wasn't losing games or anything. He had won the 7 games previously in a row, and he went on to win 8 games in a row after this game as well, each professional tournament games. So how do you beat the best player in the world when he's playing at his best in a tournament that both players care the most about? Let's see. Zhu Haohong, our hero, plays white, and Shin Jin-seo plays black. This Joseki in the very opening is not that common in the bottom left. You can say Zhu Haohong was afraid to play the flying knife variation against Shin Jin-seo. Most players, if they're confident in their Joseki, will play like this. And it becomes very complicated. I've covered this a couple of times on my channel before. I'm not going to go any further in, but to say it's the most complicated Joseki that we play these days. And this move sort of, its meaning is that you're not playing that. That you dodge it, and you allow black to gain just the smallest amount so as to have a simpler game in the opening. White just continues to take an enclosure, black takes an enclosure, white invades to 3-3. And this time, Zhu Haohong does not attach, which would invite. If he had attached here, then black could play the flying knife, and we would have the same complicated variation again. Zhu Haohong does not feel interested in playing that against Shin Jin-seo. Now, I kind of glossed over it just now, but Shin Jin-seo actually continued from this Joseki with an extend, which isn't, I think, that intuitive to do in this board position. Most people will look to switch, will look to play a Hane and a cut or something like this, intending to make an influence towards the right side and build a moyo on the right. Shin Jin-seo is not interested. This variation sort of diminishes the value on the right side, especially when white continues to extend one more time and make the black turn not so interesting. But it looks instead towards the bottom side, which at this moment seems like it would be pretty hard to build. All I can say is that to me this doesn't make very much sense, but it is the AI suggested move, and I think Shin Jin-so knows that. I imagine he even knows why this is the AI suggested variation, but I don't. To me, when white plays here, this looks like the variation, it looks like the global position has just been kind of okay for white. But the game goes on, and black breaks the left side here, and he's gonna try to show that this wall will be useful somehow without building. And that's always very interesting to see, and a difficult task, a difficult kind of position to play. But no matter what position, what type of position you're playing, if you have to pick someone to play it, you usually pick Shin Jin-so. So this was interesting. He plays a very difficult kind of position from here. When white plays this shoulder hit, looking to maybe make some large area in the center, Shin Jin-so does not answer and allow white to go on with any plan that he may have had, but immediately defends his stone on the left and even looks to undercut that white enclosure in the upper left. I think this is a great playing away. A lot of people are scared to play this kind of move because they think it might be too slow. But it's not too slow, and white doesn't even continue to kick it. White just does his own thing, and then black does his own thing as well. I mean, the game just goes on. If this were a Q game, I'm pretty sure that white would kick and then maybe pincer and try to say, hey, these stones are so cramped, or aren't you so small? High-level players would not play like this because they recognize if this is a weak group, then it needs all the strength it can get. And this kind of small space, although not very fast, is very thick, which is just what you need with a weak group like this. So that would not be something that's so challenging for Shin Jin-so to handle. Actually, he'd be quite happy to handle a weak group like that. And instead, Zhu Haohong looks to challenge that he can make a big area on the top side and asks Shin Jin-so to come in, which he does. Shin Jin-so jumps right in and plays this variation. This variation is interesting because normally, when this is played without any stones on the left side, white plays as he does in the game, and then always answers to the black stone that approaches here. But that black stone is already there. So actually this variation is just good for Shin Jin-so locally. It wasn't that obvious, but Shin Jin-so can run a few more times, and he's just going to keep on defending this black group on the top side, and eventually he's going to get Sente. So his goal here is that when white has to fix his shape in the center eventually, black wants to peep and steal away the corner. It's not like white can easily tanuki this. I mean, at the moment, he needs to defend his 3 stones, so he's actually going to be targeting these black weaknesses. You can feel free to pause the video and think of what the best move would be to use these weaknesses to defend yourself. In the game, Zhu Haohong plays here, which is the best move. When Shin Jin-so defends, this stone is the best placed. Of course, Shin Jin-so would defend with a tiger's mouth like this, even if you had played, for example, the peep into the mouth shape. This one is the stone that takes a potential territory on the top side as you threaten the cuts of the black shape. But even still, Shin Jin-so was forced to answer just this once, otherwise he would get cut and torn apart, but there's still some cutting points in the center that white has to answer to. And so he succeeded in taking care of his group in Sente and getting the chance to come and peep here. This peep is really annoying. White can't possibly push down because black has a cut with Atari, so white needs to connect. And at this point, I think it's pretty clear to see that black's group on the left side is comfortable. Those stones all look quite efficient, and black's group on the top side is also comfortable. Those stones all look efficient. And the problem for white is that the intended attacking stones in the center haven't made any territory at all, and even can still be weak. So overall, the efficiency is clearly good for black in the upper left. And the way this went wrong is actually that white played the normal variation. So in most cases, if black doesn't already have this stone, then you should play exactly as Zhu Haohong does. However, if black already has that approaching stone that you would have to answer later, then you may as well answer it first, like this. Then if black extends up, now you can play this way. Black still can look in to come like this, but white has better options that trying to save the corner later if it would go like this. And the most important thing is that exchange, the kick for black extend, forced black to sort of fight against white in the center where white was getting the power. And the reason why this variation, it didn't actually work in the end for white all the way through here, is that white has all this power, but black isn't fighting against it at all. He just saved himself sort of separately on both sides. So Shin Jin-so is already doing well here. But that doesn't mean the game is over by any stretch. He just has a small advantage. And the next fight will be on the top side between this black group, which is less settled than the left side group, and the white group, which is also less settled than the groups on the left side. And white plays this diagonal move, which is a really great move. It would be very easy to push and hane and just take some space like this. But black's shape in this variation is so gorgeous. It's almost already two eyes just by itself. And white shape on the top side, although there's a little bit more territory than by playing this diagonal move, is not much. Also, when you play the diagonal move, you can still play the peep later and try to attack this black group. So it was really important here to play a defensive move on the top side, which did not give black an easy way to make the mouth shape or to make some nice eye shape on the top side. So this diagonal was great, and then Shin Jin-so played a great move of his own, the attachment, like this. So the downside of the diagonal is that its contact power is not very good. That's a common downside. Usually we don't see diagonal moves in professional games because professionals like to win the contact fights. And it's really annoying later on that you have to keep these two stones connected at all times. And we're going to see that annoyance right away. Wait, hane is very natural, and black plays this pinching move. So this creates two potential cuts of white on the top side, and white connects like this, and the other one is connected by proxy. White could have also played the Atari here, and then the connect, but white chose not to do it because either way, black is basically going to be alive. This space is already going to be one eye, it's not false, and when black blocks here, that's another eye, so there's no need to go and try to attack a black group, which is just going to immediately live and leave yourself a cutting point. That's what white thought. So he just defended himself by himself, and black lived, and the game went on. So this is really nice sequence by Shin Jin-so, showing the weakness of the diagonal, showing the problem with that is the contact fighting efficiency, and he used that to bully his way into making two eyes locally, easily saving his group. Well, now the game sort of calms down again from this fighting in the upper left, and both players are going to strategically be looking to build the biggest territories. White swipes away the upper right. It's just a really good idea because he became super strong on the top side, and that actually means if he steals some of the territory from this black group, he can attack it. It may not have a base. So black doesn't treat this very aggressively. It's not like if he got an influence, he could make a moyo here, because white is just super strong right there. So he just sort of backs off, takes the remaining corner territory that he can get, and connects here. White takes a nice position on the bottom side, and black could cut off that one stone in the corner, but he thinks it's kind of small, so he just plays this move. This one is looking to keep a lot of pressure on the white 5 stones in the bottom left. So that pressure will hopefully make black some territory either on the bottom side or on the left side. Something. He's hoping for something. And just by itself, the move is not that small in terms of corner territory either. White continues by playing the connection underneath on the first line. And that is putting some pressure on the black 6 stones on the top. So black needs to figure out how to handle them. He chooses to just block like this. If he had played away entirely, then white could have pushed here. And it's really awkward because if you block, then white can surround and you don't really have enough space to make 2 eyes easily. So the point of this block is that now if white surrounds, white plays on the bottom side, but if white had surrounded like this, then black would be able to make some base. He could hane, he could connect here if he wanted. He also has this technique with a throw in and descend to the first line. The point is, white needs to play here if he wants to be able to connect these stones back. And after he does that, he has his own Shores of Liberty problem, so even black can play moves like this. And this would be a funny way for the game to end, where these white stones in the upper right are all dead. So this block is, it has a lot of potential eyes in the corner that you can't quite see because of the shortage of liberty problems that white has. And it also just is outlining a bit more territory as he saves his group. So it is a big move. And white continues to play on the bottom side. So this is also a very big move. It prevents this black wall from doing anything obviously efficient at the moment. And Shin Jin-so isn't concerned about that. He's not going to go ahead and take some very small territory with the wall. He's going to fight from the other side, and he's going to encourage white to come closer and closer to all of his stones so that he can use them to fight rather than to take any territory. That's a good idea. And white walks closer because there's nowhere else to walk, right? Like, it's not like white could easily walk to the left side. There's no territory there. Or, I mean, he basically is going to the center and the right side right now. And he's sort of eyeing up playing a peep here later, which is always a very annoying move. Shin Jin-so doesn't care. He just plays here. And this move is very sensible, because if Shin Jin-so had cared and had played some defensive move like this, again, this wall is going to be very cramped. And when white plays the move over here, you can see that white is even outlining some center territory where he was supposed to have a weak group. So Shin Jin-so's jumping up like this, it can potentially make some territory for black in the center, but it's largely just looking at keeping pressure on this white, making sure that if he can make some cuts, that he can attack things, that white isn't going to be able to make any territory with his weak group. And once again, Shin Jin-so is inviting white, hey, come on, fight me where my wall is. I think I can handle it. And so Zhu Haohong plays the peep. It's possible, always possible, to connect against the peep. Sometimes it loses a little bit. And especially it can lose a little bit when you have aggressive options somewhere else. So Shin Jin-so plays on the bottom side here. And he's thinking, if white continues on the right side, I'm going to attack this group on the bottom. And that group is weak. I just spent a couple of stones weakening it on the left side. So if I can spend some stones in a row attacking this group on the bottom, I should be paid off for that. But Zhu Haohong disagrees. He cuts. And Shin Jin-so is like, well, what can I do? What I said I was going to do was I'm going to split you apart and I'm going to attack a group on the bottom. The attach splits the white groups apart. It would be very easy now for white to make a mistake and play the hane, but white plays the perfect move, the jump. So this is not that obvious. Normally when your opponent attaches, you should respond to it somehow. You should hane, you should extend, something like that. In general, we tell people when your opponent attaches, you should respond. And usually this is going to be good for white. However, in this case, black is going to play the bump here. And if white just blocks like normal, black will capture the two stones. And since white just cut, this is a big disaster for white. The cut loses all its meaning when black captures those stones. So if this would happen, white would just have to jump anyway and try to save these stones anyway. And actually this hane, you can see that's the stone which is getting cut and split apart. And this would not make very much sense for white. So white is best to just jump first. Don't make the hane, don't get yourself in trouble on the left side, just jump. And black says, okay, then I'll punish your group on the bottom left. And white doesn't care again. He just leans again and captures these four stones. And black's like, what are you doing, man? Come on, I can attack your group in the bottom left. And he has spent 4 moves in a row. These 4 moves have been completely, like, Wei has completely ignored them as he played these 4 moves on the right side. So who is it good for? Was it good for black, good for white? The truth is it was good for white. Zhu Haohong was just a bit more clever than Shin Jin-so here in his positional evaluation. Although that group in the bottom left, that white group in the bottom left, is weak, and getting stones towards a weak group to attack it is very important, very important. The attack that black gets is not going to be a killing attack. White is definitely going to be able to survive there. And so if white survives, the question is, where is black going to get the profit from that? He only can get it in the form of strength somewhere, like somewhere nearby. But where? Anywhere that you look near this white group, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, there's nowhere here that signifies a large amount of territory. There's nowhere where, like, you can imagine, oh, that's the place where black is going to get 20 points by attacking the group. There just isn't a place with 20 points. It just doesn't exist. On the other hand, white's attack on the right side, which looked a lot less threatening, is in fact significantly more threatening because these 4 stones are dead. Black can't run. If those 4 stones are dead, then what happened is that the right side looks like white territory, and the black side, the bottom side, it doesn't look like territory at all. It's just some power. If black can't get something from his attack, then he lost. And it's not clear how to get something, so white is already better. White just starts saving his group. He asks, can I run to the center? And black's like, I mean, no. He exchanges this one time and he pushes. He's like, please don't run to the center. I don't want that. And white extends here. Black could continue this round, but he knows if he does that, then white will live. So he tries to keep the pressure on as best he can. He plays this attachment. And he tries to switch back. He says, I know my attack on the left side is not going to work right now. It just won't work. So let me see whether those 4 stones are really that dead. Like, what's actually going on there? This move is a probe. It's asking white, can you save those 2 stones in the upper right? And white says, yes, I can. And black says, well, really? Then that means you have another cutting point over there. And I'm going to try to use that from the other side. I'm going to play this push and clamp. And white blocks on top. So black's playing super aggressively with his dead stones. As I said before, Shinjin So is the best with pretty much any style of game that you give him. Even the game where he's dead with limited compensation, he's the best at that. Very few players are going to play this kind of attach and then push and clamp combination. But Shinjin So has a good point. He has a good point when he's doing this, which is that he's planning to make Aji from these dead stones in the way which white allows him to. So rather than getting any like obvious clear idea where you're like, I'm going to focus on that, I'm going to focus on that, the best thing to do when you die is to say, I'm going to make myself as hard to kill as possible and then exploit wherever my opponent has problems. That's what Shinjin So is doing here. He tried to expand his group on the right side as much as he can, and after this, white gets to try to kill this group. So white is going to play a couple moves. He plays this Hane, threatening to kill these 2 stones. Black now exchanges a couple moves in the bottom right. We'll get back to this. It's very important, but not important right now. And white continues by playing this attachment here, which is just taking a liberty from this black group. This attachment has problems. And any other way that white would try to capture this group, it would have also had problems. So the problems with this attachment in particular, black doesn't exploit them right away. He just goes back to attacking the bottom left. If you would have played this throw-in, then, well, you might imagine white could connect here, and black and Atari, white would capture, and Atari again. And here, white is going to win the Liberty race if black plays here. White can play this move, or he could actually be better served by capturing a stone in the center. He's going to win the Liberty race. That's not a problem. But black can play this move. So forcing white to come back and capture here and giving black a little bit of extra points in the corner. This move has some problems in the corner. That's the point. But Shinjin So doesn't use that right away, because even though there are some problems, it's not clear that that's the main problem. Zhu Haohong still has problems in the center as well. It's possible that later on, if black got a bunch of more stones in the center from attacking this bottom left group, black may be able to wedge here and continue with this wedge and continue with this cut and this Atari. And if black had a lot of stones in the center, then he could try to play something like this, something crazy, directly taking liberties away from this white group and trying to capture it, trying to save his stones back. At the moment, that doesn't work. He doesn't have enough liberties for it. But he keeps both options in mind, because the important part, when you're saving or when you're handling a dead stick like this, is that you only take what your opponent gives you. You never push for something, actively push for something, if your opponent wouldn't feel regretful that you get it. If your opponent isn't going to be like, oh man, I can't believe I let him get that, you know? The corner right now, it might be big, but Wei isn't going to be like, oh my god, black got the corner, I'm screwed. It would never be that big. So black, he gave White the biggest trouble that he could, capturing this stick, and he let White choose how to die. And in the middle of it, he did this part. Now, the reason why he does this is actually that it gains a little bit on the bottom side to have this additional Atari. Most of the time, White wants to play this move, especially when they have 3 stones already. Normally this cut is blocked because although black can take all these, the point of that extra push on the second line is usually to prevent this stuff from working. White can capture, the 3 stones are dead. But in this board, it's a little bit different because black getting this block means that black could save those 2 stones in Sente and come back to try to Liberty Race the corner group right away. So this would be actually very, very dangerous for White. That's why White had to answer like this in the corner. Black plays that Atari, and he basically got a little bit of extra potential territory if he would block here, and a little bit of extra resources on the bottom side for free by remembering to exchange this cut. And this is what I'm talking about don't take anything, but just offer. Offer. He doesn't immediately take that. The offer is, what if we do this trade? What if we do this trade? Back and forth, never doing anything bad. And so finally here, he finds nothing more to ask Zhu Haohong about yet. He says, all right, for now, that's the most liberties that I can get on the right side, so I'm just going to leave it there so that I have the most pressure in the center, and later on I can switch to take the corner if I want, but nothing is confirmed yet. I'll leave it there for now, and I'm just going to try to attack this bottom left group. And the way that he does it is by trying to ask for the territory on the bottom side, because this is the biggest place where you can get territory attacking this group. White just connects here, so not allowing black to push through and try to make a really big territory on the bottom side. And black plays the peep, the upper left, because that group still isn't alive either. And this is a pretty annoying move to answer as well. That cutting point that White has is right now it's not safe if black can cut there. It's possible to just connect, but it would be a little bit lame. So White tries to attach across like this. He's searching for more efficiency. He wants to connect that potential cutting point in Sente. And he gets to do it actually, because black pushes through like this and extends. Shinjin So is satisfied with the shape on the left side. It's a lot of territory. It's a very high position already to the 5th line and even the 7th line on the bottom part of it. And he's also satisfied with the idea that if he slides into the corner next, this White group has only 1 eye. Zhu Haohong is not satisfied with that. So although Zhu Haohong played to get Sente in the center, he now plays in the corner to try to defend his group. Black pushes once and blocks. So this means if he can capture that 1 stone, this White group still would not be able to make an eye. White answers. Now, to be honest, this answer is Zhu Haohong's first real mistake. The first noticeable significant mistake. In the beginning there, he was a little bit wrong to play the normal Joseki, but how wrong can playing a normal Joseki really be? Like it was still okay. This one, it's not the correct approach when you have a group that has 1 eye and is out to take the 2nd eye. And I see a lot of double-digit Q players make this mistake actually, a lot more often than Dan players. Well, Dan players generally know that when you handle a group like this, it's best to try to save it into the center, because this move is still going to be useful for the rest of the game, more than the move in the corner most of the time. Now, the reason why Zhu Haohong made this mistake, which I would normally consider to just be a double-digit Q mistake, is actually that it wraps back around again to being the professional mistake. The double-digit Q plays here because he thinks the territory is going to be useful for the rest of the game, so I should save my group getting territory. The Dan player understands, actually this game is about fighting. The skilled amateur knows the game is decided in the middle game when the groups are fighting against each other. So I should make sure to have the best control in the middle game. And then the professional understands once again that although the groups are fighting against each other, finally the game is decided by who has more points and can make a mistake like this. Now, the reason why this is just a mistake is that the judgment should be here. The fighting in the middle is still important. And Zhu Haohong's judgment was that the fighting in the middle is not important. He thought this left side already very strong, top side strong, right side strong. He thought everything in the center is strong and there's no potential territory for anyone, so no need to play in the center. But the reason why he was wrong is that black still has some potential territory on the left and by attacking this group on the bottom. We have to see Xin Jinzhou make use of that. If he can't make use of it, who's to say Zhu Haohong wasn't right? Xin Jinzhou plays from the bottom side. So he starts by taking the territory on the bottom, and he's asking this white group, how are you going to save yourself? White blocks here. It's a nice move to take a little bit of space in this area while threatening to play some Hane shenanigans and break through to the bottom side. Black has to answer that. So white managed to expand his area a little bit on the bottom side at the cost of just a cutting point. White fixes that cutting point by playing the peep. Black pushes and plays the bamboo. So the reason why black does not just connect is that this way, instead, black can limit the potential eye space of this white group as much as possible. And Xin Jinzhou's plan is to squeeze this group out. So if white has to continue to run to the center, then black may be able to take the territory on the left side on a big scale if he can connect under on the left. And eventually, maybe if white has to run far enough, then black can involve that with the sacrifice on the right. Zhu Haohong does nothing. He doesn't defend the group at all because he knows he can save it, even if Xin Jinzhou attacks it again. He just captures a stone in the bottom right. It was a really, really big endgame. But you can see once again, Zhu Haohong's approach to the game. It's take territory, let the game go to endgame. And this actually works really well for Zhu Haohong because his biggest strength is the endgame. His endgame is fantastic. Actually fantastic. Xin Jinzhou plays this extend. This is the next move in the sacrifice on the right side, and you may feel it somewhat strange. This is the one that he chooses, is not any interaction on the center, is not any interaction in the corner, but this one, well, this move is still useful to all those different sides, and it has some potential center territory with the black group there. And even that whole black group, it won't have to make eyes if it has an additional eye and route out in the center. So this move is the most useful move to black in the general vicinity of these sacrifice stones. That's why black takes it. Again, Xin Jinzhou isn't forcing anything. He's just taking his most useful move and asking Zhu Haohong to be the one to force things with respect to his dead group. Zhu Haohong has to fix his cutting points in the center. He has to make sure to connect there. And Xin Jinzhou plays here. This one is just a really big move, protecting against the white cut. If Xin Jinzhou had played some other random endgame, then this endgame is just enormous. It's such a big difference when this one happens, or especially when this one happens even. This is a slightly better order, so that black can't sacrifice those 3 stones. But I actually had a question when I played here, when I saw Xin Jinzhou play here. It didn't make sense to me, because normally in this shape, you always see black play the tiger's mouth. This one is better for the endgame on the side, isn't it? When you play here, you give white the routes underneath. So normally this move is actually quite bad, unless it's useful to the center. But this is a situation where black has all those moves in a row in the center. Actually, he doesn't need any more strength in the center. Why did he play here? Well, the reason is simple. In this case, it's not worse for the endgame. And the reason why that's the case is because of S1. That forcing move that Xin Jinzhou got, that subtle forcing move he got while he was sacrificing his group, has allowed him to play here just barely better in terms of its center power and the same endgame power. White plays away, he plays a big endgame move of his own, preventing black slinking under. But if white would play here, then black can play this move. And white can't play here, as you would normally expect, because when black Ataris, this is self-Atari. So actually, the way that this works, the way that this usually works, is that much, much later in the endgame, this move is black's right And then we get this exchange at some point. And this would be basically the same endgame in terms of points, because this move is higher than that Tiger's Mouth. It would basically be the same endgame in most cases as playing the Tiger's Mouth. This move just has a bit better effect as the center power. So I thought this was really nice. I mean, most of the time you can't play here, but because he has that stone at the 1-2, he pushes himself a bit further away from the end game, and he has actually the same territory in the end. It was a very nice subtlety from Shinjin-so. Zhuhao Hong just continues to block on the left side. So this ensures black can't link up. That's a really, really big deal. It makes this black territory on the left side much less fun to make. And black continues with the big move on the top side. And White tries to just walk into the left. Black needs to block that, obviously. And White tries to reduce the left from the center. This kind of position is always pretty annoying for black to play, because you can't kill that stone, and is not that fun to get pressed down by either, because the territory doesn't look so big if White is getting some strength in the center as they reduce you to that. So black pushes one time, he accepts it one time, and then when White pushes here, now he strikes into the center. He's thinking, although White can try to push and come in, there's no way to actually bust through the door and break into the left side right now, unless White is willing to sacrifice his group on the bottom. And White's not willing to do that. White is ready to defend that, so he plays a Hane. He's running into the center. He's expanding his space again with his group, making sure it's 100% safe and alive. That gives black the opportunity to play this Tiger's Mouth. And this actually gives White a really awkward problem of saving those two stones. I said they would never die, and they'll never die. That's true. But White has to actually like connect them back somehow. And he chooses to do it this way. My AI gave that connection a bad score, but I don't know why. to me, this looks just as fine as any other way. But Shinjin-so apparently has caught up a bit. He defends on the left side. This was necessary at this point, since White saved that. White was now threatening to do stuff like peep, peep, run in, and since White is safe on the bottom side, black would have no option to counterattack. So this has basically secured black's left side territory, and the game is very close. We're into a half-point game territory. White plays an attack on the top side, the Atari, and then he plays the Tiger's Mouth. So this ran his group into the center, gives him a little bit more power there, reduces the potential territory of black on the top side, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't so amazingly large, and black could play this peep. It's pretty annoying for White to have to answer, because after that, black has this move. This was forcing due to the sacrifice. That was just looking to give him the best power that he could get on the top side. He thought that was the most necessary thing that he needed right now, and he saved that peeping stone. So because black is so strong on the top side due to that sacrifice, he's using that to peep and save, and this Tiger's Mouth that Zhuhao Hong played, if it can't be used to really seriously attack these two stones, then it will have turned out to be a waste, and black will actually have used it as a lever to dive in and reduce this topside territory. White plays here. So this is the start of the attack on those two stones, and black needs to try to connect to them as best as he can, and White plays this Hane. It's looking to play the wedge and directly capture those two stones. So black exchanges one more time in the corner, making sure that his whole group is alive, and then he just connects. Apparently, it was better to play here. This is something that Shinjin-so definitely considered, but the problem is it's so difficult to judge whether this is going to gain territory or lose territory. When you cut here, White needs to save this one stone. He can't wedge right away because there would be a double Atari. When he saves that one stone, then you need to save these two stones, so you need to connect. And then the question is, which stone is better, the black cut or the White extend? Most of the time, the White extend is better in situations like this, because there's potential center territory for White that gets outlined by that. And additionally, if White can capture that one stone, that would be good too. So black is sort of forced to save that one stone from here. I mean, if White would try to net, then black will run it out, and if White tries to play anything in the center, black needs to kind of save it. The benefit for black, the reason why this is good for black in the end, is that the white group now is isolated due to that cut. So eventually white will also need to spend some time defending his group, and because of all the different cutting points and weird shapes and connections on the top side, there's actually going to be some problems remaining for white on the top, no matter how he tries to defend. So that's why this cut was apparently better for black. Shinjin-so opted not to play that cut, committing in the center to keeping some pressure on the topside group, and that allowed white to defend his group comfortably. Black would not really want to cut anymore since white is already saved, and there's not any real benefit in the center to do so. So white seems to be doing well in the half-point game, but it still isn't anything different than a half-point game. It still seems to be absolutely playable into the end game for both colors. Black plays this throw-in, white answers, and he plays this clamp. So this is how black is going to try to use the remaining weaknesses of white on the top side. However, this is normally going to be very, very bad. It's just that Shinjin-so understands why it's normally bad, and he has a reason why it can even be good in this case too. Why is this move normally bad? Well, white can play the Hane here. If white can play Hane, then black cannot play anything like peep here, because white can play this move, and white has filled the liberty. So white has prevented black from doing anything directly relevant to the white life and death. If the descend was possible, then if the descend was played, then black could play this push, and then he could start thinking about push here, play here, and the whole white group may not be cleanly alive. That would be annoying for white. But that's not what happened. What happened was the Hane. This means that Zhu Haohong will just live. He'll get an eye here and an eye there. There's no problem. But black had an idea. He was going to Atari here, Atari again. This is normally very bad. One more time, the clamp was bad, because it's just been thrown into white's territory, and because of that, white has an extra prisoner. If black doesn't get anything from that, I mean, what black has gotten so far is just this Atari, it's just like 1 point, and white has a couple extra prisoners. Seems like black is losing on territory in this exchange. However, black knew better. He had an idea that he was going to push here and then pinch white in this area. So using white's shortage of liberty in this whole stick and cutting points to be able to get this Atari. So although black threw in a couple of stones to the white territory on the top side, he used it to be able to capture a larger area in the upper right. It turns out the exchange is just about even. I thought this was really cool, because normally when you see this sort of thing executed, you don't see it work out so well, but Shinjin-so obviously had it all planned out. He continued, he had Sente, and played the next move, capturing a stone on the bottom side. This was the biggest remaining move for sure. Gives black some territory capturing and lots of pressure in the nearby areas. White played the Hane and the connect in the bottom left. That was forcing. White cut there would be very big on this board. And we're suddenly entering a stage in the endgame which is surprisingly late, actually. White cuts here to get this exchange. That move is white's Sente, but black has the right to block. That's going to be black's move first. And then plays that move. That was forcing as well. And plays here. The reason why white played here is because the endgame has suddenly become almost into 2-point territory. So we're almost playing moves just worth 2 points, and white wasn't sure yet which was the biggest move, which is just a little bit bigger than 2 points. There's a few of them on the board. And so he played this move, trying to get more time to think. It was a time Zuji. However, Shinjin-so called him out on it. He said that move is not worth as much as the other moves. He played here. If Shinjin-so would continue to play on the top side, he could try to capture these 3 stones, but in doing so, he would lose all sorts of potential in the center, and even the capture of those 3 stones is not that big anyway. When white tries to capture this 1 stone, black could then try to capture the stones with less liberty commitment, actually. So white locally should extend, but if white extends, because white needs to capture these stones on the inside, white can't come back and connect all the way through to save those extending stones. So white actually has no reasonable follow-up in the upper right area, nor did he even clearly gain anything by throwing in the first place. So black got a lot when he played here. Black gained enough to now be winning. This move was a 2-point move, and it also had the most continual effects afterwards in the sense that this white whole group is going to have to take care of itself. The black will not have to take care of any cutting issues that it has on the left side. And he continued by playing this move as well. White was correct to descend to the first line, making sure he had a second to eye, so to clear everything up with his group, and it was also just a very big move, preventing black's Atari in the first line. But when black blocked here, he prevented white's potential to force him back in Sente. So white actually could have played this move first, and then come back here, and you can see that black's territory would be at least 1 point smaller and probably more in this variation. So black took his full move to take that 1 point in what we call reverse Sente, meaning it would have been forcing for white if white had played there. The reverse of a forcing move. White played this forcing move, reducing black's territory once on the bottom side, and extended. And black played here. So black is looking to try to cut, try to peep on this white stick, try to continue to reduce its area and attack it, and white plays in the center. And black blocks. This block was not ideal, actually. If black would have played a big move in the center, white's attack by cutting would never really amount to anything. Black could even cut here in this case. And white's pushing through here also doesn't reduce black's area that much. So the black push in the center, which is putting a lot of pressure on the cutting point and then also trying to make some territory in the center, apparently this was slightly favored compared to blocking here. But for a human, it's very hard to make that judgment. We can't tell how much territory there will be in the center. I only know because I asked AI. From there, white is the first person to play in the center. He played this jump, and it looks like white may be able to make some territory on the right side of the center, so black is going to try to reduce it. He jumps all the way in here. This is the furthest that he thought he could go safely, and so reducing this white potential territory as much as possible. White played to try to cut it off. So he says, how safe is that really? And black played this push. Now, as I said, black is leading now. Shinjin So is doing well. And Shinjin So is, in my opinion, the greatest endgame player of all time. Zhu Haohong's specialty is endgame, and he's also a very good player. But Shinjin So's endgame has to be the best. I think it's almost always exactly perfect. But somehow, in this game, we already know Zhu Haohong has plot armor. And you've entered endgame, 2-point endgame even, and Shinjin So is going to lose his lead. How is it possible? To be honest, even though I checked it with AI, and even though I've researched this game at this point for months, I still don't know. I don't know exactly when was the point where Shinjin So lost this game, and I don't know exactly why. Because it was too hard. So all I'm going to say from now on is moves that I believe to be mistakes, and reasons why I think that that's the case. Ways I think that black could have won, and I'll say when I believe black can't win anymore. But I don't know. I could be wrong. This is so hard. From here, this move, I believe it to be inaccurate. It's obviously is pushing into the white area on the right side, and so it reduces a lot of white's potential problems, potential points, I mean, on the right side. Problems for black. Points for white is problems for black. The problem is that it loses a chance to use this white weakness efficiently. So I would have preferred to see the peep here first. And the point is, if white just connects, then we've actually reduced some points for white in this area already as a forcing move. And then we don't need to push here. It has less power. We can do something a little looser and safer. you also have other ways that white can play. If white tries to fight back against you here, let's say they do this one, now we can push in, and now it's going to be much more powerful for black. So I believe exchanging this peep first was good. We're going to see black still try to exchange that in the game, but white is going to have a better way to fight back against it because white got, after playing this forcing move, white got to play the block in the center. So trying to keep more pressure on this black 2 stones. And here I believe that black makes another mistake. He turns here. And what this does is it tries to connect back to the center, and it uses that cut to do so. So white is going to fix that cut. White is going to play like this. And at that moment, now you can see these black 3 stones, still white is threatening to cut them off from the top side group. If white pushes through, they can't connect. And white, by playing this tiger's mouth out into the center, has sort of set up some potential net in the center. It's difficult for black to save these 3 stones if he doesn't do anything right now. So this is the moment that Shin Jin-so plays the peep. I actually don't have a problem with the peep, but white can now fight back. This is the kind of fighting back which I was talking about, where white plays this turn, and black needs to connect here, so to give himself a second route out still, and white plays this Atari. What is happening to black is that his shape on the bottom side here is collapsing a little bit, not really collapsing, but collapsing enough that white may be able to use his cutting points to get some more territory with his group on the bottom, to expand his space. Let's go all the way through the game so that you can understand what kind of position that I'm thinking of. Black pushes through here first. So this is both saving his 3 stones and keeping pressure on white's 3 stones. Although there is a ko here, and although if white could win the ko, that would be really big, black has almost infinite ko threats. This was a ko threat, but black also has all sorts of ko threats on the right side, threatening to save his group. So there's no need for black to worry about losing this ko. Even when white plays this tiger's mouth, making sure to save his 3 stones, assuming that black will win the ko, then black even exchanges this as well before winning the ko. Kind of insolent. But finally, at the end, he has nothing else to do but try to reduce this white territory in the center. And so he just connects here, because any other way that he would try to connect this, it would allow his territory to still be reduced. So he thinks this one is the best, and then white can play this squeeze and block here. At this moment, Katago still thinks that black is winning, as far as I can tell. I don't. So Katago gives black a 0.5 advantage, but when I play it out, I can't find any way for black to win. I can't figure it out anymore. I think Shin Jin-so may have also thought that this could be a winning variation for him. That would be why you would play into it. I don't think that he had the time, because this is relatively short time control at this point. We're in Byoyomi, I'm sure. I don't think he had the time to fully calculate it out. And somehow, some way, his advantage disappears. White is going to win by half a point. I don't think they made any endgame mistakes from here on out. So what went wrong? This ko. That ko is so awkward. Because black really wants to keep this stone connected and have that stone be peeping the white shape there, so that white has to answer it. But at the end, white could play this move, and then when white answered, white got an additional point, even. And that point is what decides who's going to win by half a point. I believe that it was the turn that led to that. So the turn forced black to have to save himself somehow. The saving with the peep is good because it reduces the white territory here. But the turn that originally made it so that you had to stress so much to save those 3 stones was probably the problem. Instead, we should anticipate still that white is going to be playing this tiger's mouth to connect that cut and trying to keep as much pressure as they can on us while they do so. If that tiger's mouth is coming, what's the stone that we want? It's probably here. This is if white tiger's mouth, now we can block like this. And white can't cut. If white would try, then eventually we can Atari and capture these 2 stones. And there's no way for white to cut off those 2. So from this move, we give ourselves a route into the center, and white's tiger's mouth is not as imposing anymore. There's going to be some liberty problems for white if they try to keep a lot of pressure Then if white saves over here, the difference is now, although we made a split shape, white isn't pressing our Ponopi shape on the bottom. And we can still use those cutting points to the best of our ability. In the center, you can even try to cut here first. I think this is an interesting variation. White could connect like this, and black can connect back. And in this kind of method, white has to fill in the top side there. That's been cut off. And probably will have to fill in this point as well. I mean, black will likely get that one in Sente. The biggest benefit to black in this variation is that white doesn't get to squeeze over here. I mean, white can squeeze this much, but they didn't reduce that point on the outside. So probably by playing here, black could be 1 point better. In the game, they played this ko, and it's crazy to think that a ko like this, which Shinjin-so could always fight because he had such an advantage in the ko threats, somehow ends up losing. And all the other ways that he could connect, instead of just this 223, they all lose by half a point too, by my estimation. Although Katago kind of disagrees, so you may have to just trust me on that one. I'm not sure. But from here, black plays the last 2-point move, and then white plays a Sente and a reverse Sente 1 point, and they exchange some moves in the center. That Hane is sort of a high-level exchange talking about whether black will be able to make that Atari on the top side, but there's no mistakes in this part as far as I can see. You can see when black pushed through here, he was threatening to make an I, a point in the center, and white broke that, also looking to make some potential point of his own, but black could wedge like this. And this wedge is eyeing up the 2 white sticks into the center that may have to connect back. So if they could have connected through in the center, then white would save a point in having to fill later. White could not save that point with the bottom side because he chose instead to make a point in the center here. So at the end, that narrows out to nothing in comparison to the other variation, where if white wanted, he could have also played the Atari from this side, and this doesn't really matter. But here, white has no points in the center. Black could play here if he wanted, and instead has these 2 points, both captured already. So this was a fancy way to do the same thing. Finally, we have this upper right corner variation being played a bit. That ko was finally nullified. It was super complicated whether black would get to play that ko or not, and then these other ko's are not. At the end of the day, the way that this works, those 2 ko's were miai, so white just fixed his liberties in the rest. And at the end, white wins by half a point. What a crazy game, and honestly, extremely well played by Zhu Hong. Shinjin-so made barely any mistakes the entire game, as usual, and somehow still lost by half a point. It's one of those games. I couldn't even tell where the losing move really was in the losing moment. It was probably not playing that knight's move in the center, but I don't know. Something went wrong. That's all I can say. Something went wrong around here, and somehow Zhu Hong managed to out-endgame Shinjin-so. I understand you may not trust me that Shinjin-so's endgame is the best that has ever been when I show you Shinjin-so losing an endgame. I think this is the only time he's lost an endgame that I remember in like years. I'm not kidding. And he plays a lot of games. So, I mean, maybe he's lost an endgame a couple more times, but usually he wins these. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the game. It was really, really cool. And I apologize that it has taken me several months to get confident enough to give a commentary on this game. I hope you understand by now. Thank you very much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.